Welcome to the show, everybody.
Well,
I'm Franz.
I'm Kevin. Welcome to the new Batcave in Avengers Tower, everybody. Welcome back.
Listen, man, we've got a lot to talk about
Oh yeah.
this show. We've got a lot to talk about. I know you want to talk about Batwoman, the latest update, and which let's lead that into the Ray Fisher conversation. I'm curious to get your thoughts on that beef that's going on between Ray Fisher and WB. I know you're eager to talk about and give me some of the latest updates on Batwoman. What's going on?
Basically, over the weekend, because of the Super Bowl, the young lady, I think her name is Javicia. I may be pronouncing that wrong. She blew up and freaked out on executives at Warner Brothers and at the CW because she felt that there was no reason why Batwoman couldn't have had a fresh show over the weekend and run it against the Super Bowl. And that's ridiculous because no network worth its salt is going to do that. And she got insulted that they ran a repeat on Sunday night.
That's mind-boggling. That's dumb. That's dumb on so many levels.
Yes.
It's not even worth talking about. First of all, who is she to be demanding anything of anything? And second of all,
right.
Who's giving her advice? That's the last thing you want, is to air a new show during the Super Bowl. Like, what are you doing?
Nobody in their right mind, and it's been done a couple of times through whatever opposite networks have had the Super Bowl over the decades, and every time they've done it, and I do mean every time that, say, NBC or ABC or whoever had it ended up trying to run something new during that game, it failed.
Of course.
It just completely. A lot of times they're taking a risk even having something on after the game.
Of course.
Because most people, once they're through with the game, and depending upon what the game is, if it's not going the audience's way or a particular individual's way, they turn it off anyway.
Absolutely. And by the time the Super Bowl is over, you're moving on. You're saying goodbye to your friends. You're saying goodbye. And if you are the type to stay and watch television, well, guess what? You're going to watch that channel. And that's why they put in, sometimes they introduce new shows at the end of the Super Bowl, which they did with the Queen Latifah show,
right,
which came on afterwards. So, yeesh. Yeah, so let me ask you this. Let's be fair here. Let's take a breath. A lot of times things are reported that are not accurate. Do we know this is what happened? Where is this coming from? And
as far as I know, based on a statement that Warner Brothers put out earlier in the week, because they kind of apologized for her behavior.
They apologized for her.
Somehow this hit the public, and part of why they're kind of downplaying it is, as I told you a couple of weeks ago, they're already getting some negativity from what's happening with Zack Snyder and Justice League. I told you that before, and they're trying to play back and play down a lot of the negativity that Warner Brothers and what have you are getting. And it, like I said, it hit the public somehow that she was going off again. Like a couple of weeks ago, prior to this, it was, the challenge with Greg Gustin about, oh, there should be an all black version of this and all that. She's just overstepping her bounds way too early. And it's not necessarily, because I've talked to other people about this, and it's not necessarily a black white thing as it relates to her challenging some of the white people in charge, because there are some blacks that are on their production staff. I just think the whole idea of, I'm on TV now and I'm some big star and I took over this role has quickly gone to her head.
Wow, that is quick. That is quick. That is. I mean,
that's
quick.
What I think happened.
That if it is, she's doing up, and I guess this leads into the conversation. she's doing a Ray Fisher, which, by the way, what do you think about that whole thing? It looks like some departments don't have their house in order. And it looks like Marvel, Kevin Feige, if anything, let's give him credit for that, because it looks like there's beef in the Star Wars universe.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like there's beef in the DC universe. So it looks like Marvel's the only thing that's basically got its act together.
Mm-hmm.
But what do you think about the Ray Fisher situation? Do you compare it to what's happening with Batwoman, for example?
Only a little bit. And the only reason why I say that the Ray Fisher thing is a little different is some of his co-stars from Justice League, and primarily Gal Gadot herself and
Jason Momoa.
Jason Momoa, have backed him with pretty much everything he said. They've tried to get comments out of Affleck and out of Henry Cavill, and both of them have kind of said there were some issues, but that's all I'm going to say. They both kind of pulled back, and I kind of did the I'm not getting into it kind of thing. So something must have happened somewhere somehow.
It
What?
seems like it doesn't seem that there is a dispute to the claim, but it seems like he's trying to go beyond that. For example, so the complaint is that what's his name, Joss Whedon was not very nice. Joss Whedon was a jerk, was an a-hole, and Joss Whedon was a bully on the set. All right, that's the accusation. But it seems as though from there, the accusation and the conspiracy is building. And so Joss Whedon was bad, and the producers, I'm forgetting the names, was bad, and Amato was bad. And so it's almost like if so WB, and listen, let me be very clear. I've know about this. I read about it, but I'm no expert. I didn't study it by any stretch of the imagination. So I want to be very careful in my opinion, because I don't know the facts well enough to really have an opinion. But superficially speaking, it seems as though the accusations are building all the way to the president. What's the guy's name? Amata? Or I forget his name.
Walter Amata. Yeah.
Yeah, Walter Amata. They're asking for him to be fired and to remove. I don't know. It seems like it seems a bit much. So I don't know if you know more about that.
I know a little bit more just based on other people that I've talked to that are attached to the studios in a manner of speaking. Part of it, honestly, is that I know a couple of people that work for Disney, and because all of these people kind of keep their eye on one another, some of what Warner Brothers is going through, of course, has crossed over into issues with Disney and Paramount and back and forth, because they're still having problems with Paramount via Star Trek. So this is happening across the board.
It does seem to be happening. So what do you think? Do you think so? From my sort of outside point of view, here's what I think. Ray Fisher had an issue with the way that he was treated on the set, which is a legitimate point of view. He expressed that dissatisfaction to the public, and there was somewhat of a pushback, somewhat of a denial. He insisted on it, and asked for an investigation, and he was ready to testify. And from what I understand, there's misinformation about whether he was a willing participant or he wasn't. Some reports say that he wasn't showing up when he was supposed to, and other reports say that he did. And anyway, confusion with the investigation. An investigation takes place, and the accusations go, well, the investigation is not legit, and Amata needs to go, and so on and so forth. It seems as though that's a little bit too much, because if I'm on the set, and again, I'm speaking without knowing fully the facts, so I may learn something that changes my point of view. But it seems to me that if I'm on the set and I'm being mistreated by a director, which is not anything new, by the way, I think it's legitimate to express that, to let people know what happened, but I don't know that I needed to go further than that, do I? I mean, this is still an industry and I need to protect my career. And I don't think you're exposing, like a pedophile or anything like that. So I don't know. It seems like I don't know that I accept Ray Fisher's position fully, because it seems as though he's not reasonable enough to me. Well, what do you think?
I I I have to openly say that you couldn't be more correct on this issue. I don't completely buy everything that's been said either. Um, I do know that when Whedon was brought on board, because this was talked about industry wide, he was kind of strutting around like a peacock because of what had happened and the way that they were losing people that were attached to the Justice League project. And when he came on board, it was sort of like, all right, boys and girls, I'm here to save your butts.
Yeah.
So it was ego run amok from day one. And I think that part of it continued. The rest of it, I'm not so sure about. I believe that if it had really gotten that far out of hand, not to take anything away from Fisher, but I truly believe that if it had gotten that big and that loud, you would have heard far more uh, uh, from Affleck and all others concerned, because they would have stepped forward and said, "Look, this is getting ridiculous." The only other thing that I can think that maybe help perpetuate this is that out of all the characters in the movie, Cyborg is the least known, the least popular, and turned out character wise to be the least involved.
Hmm.
And in a weird way, and I know this sounds dumb because it almost sounds like I'm bringing up a conspiracy theory, but if it has any legs at all, that may have been what it was. That they simply looked at the situation and went, okay, is he Ezra Miller for the Flash? No. Is he anybody else? No. Then don't worry about it as much.
That definitely seems to be the case. It's an interesting thing, because it seems as though Cyborg is the least important Justice Leaguer. He's barely a Justice Leaguer, to be honest with you. But interestingly enough, for whatever reason, it appears as though Zack Snyder had made a focus on Cyborg, on that character. And so on the one hand, you've got a new actor coming into the scene, playing Cyborg, and getting a relatively prominent role in the movie, which apparently, when Josh Whedon came on board, dismissed that altogether and reduced that portion of the role. And you're absolutely right about Josh Whedon, about how he came on. The reports are that he came on strutting his stuff like he was going to save the day. And the reports are that he came on not just strutting his stuff, but putting down the Zack Snyder movie and saying, "Oh, this is silly. This is it," which insulted a lot of the production people who had been involved in the movie, and they felt, slighted by that. And also, but the other thing we need to keep in mind is that Josh Whedon had a certain pressure on him, which is he was coming in halfway through. There was a deadline. He needed to get it done. That was part of the reason he was brought in. So he didn't have time to dilly-dally or cuddle anyone. So there's all kinds of stuff going on within it that could create conflict and anger and all that stuff. It seems, based on the information that I know, that we're talking about, that's been reported. Again, we don't know the true in-depth story. It seems as though Josh Whedon definitely overstepped his bounds and definitely acted inappropriately. It seems as though that's what happened. Having said that, I don't know that Ray Fisher needs to push it to the extent that he's demanding the removal of the president of Warner Brothers. I don't know that you know what I mean. Like, it's like, bro, I don't know that it goes that far.
I again, not to sound like a broken record, but I couldn't agree with you more, because I think that a lot of where so much of this is coming from with no disrespect to anybody in the industry, and you and I have talked about this before, a number of issues relating to folks for equality and the Me Too movement and Black Lives Matter and all of that, in a weird way, and I hope we don't lose viewership behind what I'm about to say, but I'm going to say it. They're getting carried away in so many ways. You have so many what's the word I'm looking for? There are so many separate little factions now that are stepping up. Oh, you insulted me. You did this. You did that. You did this. You did that. It's getting out of hand. People cannot even openly speak anymore in a manner of speaking, in my opinion, without getting in trouble for expressing themselves. And I'm not talking about expressing themselves to the point where you are honestly insulting people. I'm just talking about openly being able to speak and say, okay, this is my opinion. And within 30 to 40 minutes or within a day of somebody saying, this is what I think about this issue, boom, slam, here you go. And people are losing their minds over this mess.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's I have nothing against people expressing themselves, but I honestly believe, Franz, that part of this is coming from the fact as well that people are hiding behind keyboards.
Yeah.
A lot of these folks that are speaking up, I'm not saying that you can't have fear, but a lot of these people that are speaking up, they're only talking this way because they can either do it through a keyboard on a phone or a keyboard on a computer.
You're right.
It would not go on somebody's talk show or a news program in most cases to say, this is what I feel and this is why I feel it. Oh, but you'll use Zoom, you'll use Twitter, you'll use Instagram, you'll use Facebook and whatever else is out there to do these things. And I just think it's getting crazy.
It's a fine line, isn't it? And it's a complicated issue. And I've said this before, and I've said it before on the show. It's a very complicated issue. I agree with you, and I think what you're saying is absolutely genius. I think that it is getting out of hand, and it has gotten out of hand. Now, I think we have to put a very important caveat because you said it brilliantly. Um, it's out of hand. It doesn't reduce the validity of the issue. It's just that you have, with great power comes great responsibility. Okay, I forgot to say that last show, but with great power comes great responsibility. And so what happens is you have the Me Too movement. And the Me Too movement is a legitimate movement. We cannot forget that. If someone was accosted, if someone was attacked in any way, that's something that we as a society should be concerned about. And we should try to seek, the end of that abuse, of that oppression, no matter what the relationship is. Abuse is never a good thing. So let's empower the victims to speak up, and let's empower the victims to fight back against the oppressors. So in empowering the victims, with great power comes great responsibility. And we cannot then take that power and abuse it and stifle people from expressing thoughts that are not necessarily racist, that are not necessarily sexist, that are not necessarily anti whatever, And so that's the line that we have to sort of draw between the two subjects. And I do agree with you. There are instances, too many instances, where the person has expressed a thought that's not necessarily anti anything. And it's like, oh, you must have said it because I'm Black, or you must have said it because I'm a female, or you must have said it because I'm transgender. That's not always the case. And let's be careful with that. Having said that, the opposite as an overreaction too. You're overreacting. If someone says something that's Me Too, it's like, oh, you're automatically overreacting. You're automatically SJW. You're automatically pushing your agenda. That's not always the case either. And as I've said many, many times, is that we have to stop and we have to kind of listen to one another. And if someone says to me, you said something, what's happening, and this is part of the whole Trump, march on the Capitol, there's a pushback. that's happening. And a lot of people feel, I think, completely wrong, wrongly so. But a lot of people feel like they're being oppressed, they're being denied their rights, not being heard, they're being shut down by the, and that's why there's such a backlash against the social justice warrior movement, because it's like, whoa, I can't even breathe. Let me be free. I think, as much as I disagree with that, and I do disagree that, listen, it's privileged and it's sort of crybaby-ish, but I do think people still need to be heard when they express their feelings. And I think that when we come from an oppressed population that understands how it feels to be oppressed, I don't think our reaction should be, oh, shut up, go to hell, get over it. It should be, oh, let me hear you, and let's find a way to respect one another's positions. You see what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That's what I think about it.
I agree completely. I really do. I mean, one last point that I want to make about the Ray Fisher cyborg issue. You do know that they're moving forward with a reworked version of the Flash's Flashpoint story, and they're doing it as a movie, but he's already been removed.
Oh yeah, Ray Fisher's been
They have
removed.
already taken, and it's not just the idea of Ray Fisher to add insult to injury. They're not even, at least for now, supposedly they're not even going to recast the character. The character has been completely written out of what they were going to do about Cyborg and the Flash being a team up. The character is gone from the story.
I hate to say this, and this is going to be relatively interestingly controversial, but as you said, I'm going to say it anyway. Dude, I understand. I wouldn't hire him either. I'm sorry. Like, if I'm WB, if I'm listen, if I'm WB and I want to be fair and I want to respect people's rights and their voices and so on and so forth, and I've got a Ray Fisher making this much noise about this many issues, like not letting it go. I've done an investigation because of your say so. You're not happy with my investigation. Dude, I don't care if, even if I find out that, oh my God, yeah, he's actually right, I still wouldn't hire him. I'm sorry. I would be like, bro, I don't want that. I don't want to bring that trouble to my new, venture. And therein lies the danger to me. To me, that's where he went too far. Like, it's one thing to express, but when you're going too far and demanding too much, it's like you become unreasonable to me. And again, let me say this again. I don't know the details of the story. I really, really don't. But based on what I've heard from him, and based on what I've known of the general of even what his accusations are, I don't know that we need to go all the way there to demand the firing, the removal of the president of the damn, company. Come on, man.
This is all part of what we were talking about a couple of weeks ago when you were asking me about the Star Wars issues, and I was talking to you about Kathleen Kennedy.
Yeah.
It's the same type of thing. I don't know if you are aware, but not long after Rise of Skywalker came out, not to get into a Star Wars thing again, but
Yeah.
not long afterwards, John Boyega ended up doing several different interviews in several different mediums and basically said he wasn't happy with the way that Finn was handled. And after he spoke up, then Oscar Isaac spoke up. After Isaac said something, then Daisy Ridley got into it. Then Adam Driver got into it, and it was sort of like, okay, what people had heard all along seems to be the case, that the happy with what the end result was. And it went back to a lot of them blaming Kathy Kennedy on what happened. They sidestepped a lot of the J.J. Abrams material, and it came down to, okay, between Ryan Johnson, again, and Kathleen Kennedy, what the hell did y'all do to Star Wars? It's the same type of thing.
Wait, I'm sorry. I kind of lost you a little bit. The signal was lost. So Boyega and all the other actors, Driver and all these other Adam Driver, what were they? What was the complaint, and who were they complaining? And do you
I'm
feel
sorry, I assumed you were aware of it, so I apologize.
no?
In between Last Jedi and um, Rise of Skywalker, because of the changes in the script and the story and all that between Rian Johnson and J.J. Abrams and Disney and all concerned, Boyega was not happy with the way that they started to change and rework Finn as a character. He thought that Finn had become a throwaway character between the two movies, especially after establishing in the first film that at least it seemed like the story was going to revolve around his involvement with Rey and with Poe, almost like what they did with Luke, Han, and Leia. And then all of a sudden, it was sort of like, no, we ain't doing that.
I got you.
And then when they involved Kelly Marie Tran, it was just as bad for her. It was sort of like, okay, we have the young Asian woman involved, but we're really not going to allow her to do anything. And apparently, and I am not exaggerating this, and I hope I don't get in trouble for saying it, when they were originally doing the press coverage for the movie, just about all of them were saying how wonderful the movie was, how great it was, how fabulous they felt for, being involved in wrapping up the Star Wars saga the way that it got wrapped up. But I have always felt that for a while at least, that was part of a don't blow this by telling them your true feelings, because it can get a lot of people in trouble. So stay quiet. And then once the movie was out, it made the money it made the home video market money and everything. It was sort of like, okay, now I can talk. And once that little moratorium, I'll call it that, although it's not quite that, but it's close to it. Once that little moratorium period had passed, when he started doing more interviews and what have you, it was sort of like, no, I didn't really like the movie. I didn't like what they did to the character, etc., etc., etc. And once he opened his mouth, everybody else started stepping forward and saying, yeah, John's kind of right. Y'all blew it.
Interesting.
I even have a little bit of a clip for a Disney special that most of the cast was a part of. And basically, one of the funniest things about it, and it was also sad at the same time, they were all asked, how did you feel about the ending? What did you think about the close of the movie? And, they did the round robin and everybody answered, but the biggest and most bizarre answer that they got from all concerned came from Anthony Daniels. Because when he was asked, okay, you've been involved in all of this, what did you think of how it was finally wrapped up? And he literally looked at the young girl that did the interview, because it was actually part of something for MTV. But he looked at the young girl and literally said, that was it. And he didn't add anything else to it.
So this is at the end of the last trilogy.
Uh-huh. They were not really happy with the way that was wrapped up.
Interesting. So you've said a lot here, and so here's my question to you.
And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to drone on like that.
Oh no. That's not what I meant at all. What I mean is that we were talking about Ray Fisher, and then you brought it up to Boyega. But it seems like Boyega's reaction is different than Fisher's reaction, in the sense that he kind of kept his mouth shut, did his job. At the end of the thing, expressed how he felt, which, I mean, everybody has a right to express how they feel. And am I hearing you right? And then the other, and it's interesting. I've been researching Star Wars, and because of you, I've been falling in love with Star Wars, to be honest with you.
Yes.
And I'm getting a whole new level of appreciation and love for Star Wars. But it's interesting. I was watching several interviews, and I was watching an interview with oh gosh, I do this all the time. I forget like obvious names. Who played Luke Skywalker?
Mark Hamill.
Mike, of course, Mark Hamill. But he was on a panel with Johnson, and the guy asked him a question and said, "Hey, listen, how do you feel about the fact that the fans are not happy with what you're doing and the direction that you're going?" And Hamill interrupted the questioner and said, "Look, I told him you have to listen to."
I'm familiar with that interview. I know I have it.
By the way, I just think that Mark Hamill response was brilliant because he played both. He told the line perfectly because he sent the message to the fans clearly. He was like, "I'm with you. I don't like what he did either," but he did it in a way without throwing him under the bus. In fact, the audience applauded as if he was supporting Johnson, but actually he was making a different point. It was an interesting response. I just thought it was fascinating.
I know exactly what you're talking about. I have that interview. I know the one you're talking about.
So it raises the question. Here's the question that I'm going to raise for you. Because again, we have to look at things from both sides and we have to be fair. If you're an actor, okay, and you've been given a role and you care about the role and you want to do the best job possible, you want to do the best job possible, not just with respect to your performance, but you want to deliver the best product possible, right? And you're sitting there seeing, and we talked about this last show, we talked about how bad movies are still made, right? And you're an actor and you understand the dynamics that makes a bad movie a good movie. You're a professional. You may know the material very well if you're a Star Wars fan or a Marvel fan or whatever fan. And you're seeing the direction being misdirected. What is your obligation? Do you say something? Should you say something? Or do you keep your mouth shut and affect your career? Because if the movie comes out and it's bad, then your reputation gets hurt as well. So what is the obligation of an actor? How much of a voice does an actor have, both with respect to artistically speaking, individually, if the director's not pulling out the best performance from them, creatively from a point of view of the delivery of the product, whether it's a movie, socially, the responsibility of the movie to deliver a positively social message, and politically, like how much of a voice do you think an actor has?
You really posed an interesting question. I have to give you your props because having worked with people that were actors in different projects and amateurs, and of course watching professionals via Hollywood productions, it's a really funky mix because as an actor, I think if you have enough clout, you're able to speak up and say, look, this isn't working, or I have an issue with A, B, C, D, and E. But you have to be a Meryl Streep or a Clint Eastwood or someone of that caliber to get away with that, because most directors are going to basically tell you to sit down and go sit in the corner. And especially if you're new to the business, or if you're really wet behind the ears like a Ray Fisher, or even this young lady that's part of the Batwoman production, you have to be very careful with speaking up. Should you speak up, being a director? And I'm going to say this out loud, and please forgive me, Franz.
Be careful.
Better damn well sight do it if the director is screwing up. That's
I'm
how.
sorry, you cut off a little bit. Say that one more time.
In my opinion, if you're working with somebody as a director, because you're in the role, because you're bringing that character or that scenario to life, if as a director something is not coming across correctly, in my opinion, you have every right to speak up.
Well, yes, absolutely. As a director, my question
And
to
no,
you
no, no,
was,
no. I'm saying from an actor point of view, like if a director sets something up and you run through your paces and it's just not coming across, in my opinion, regardless of whether you're a Meryl Streep or a Daisy Ridley or a Henry Cavill or whoever it happens to be, in my opinion, creatively, speak up, say something. Now, they may not agree with you as an actor, but my thing is, you're all supposed to be working on this project together.
yeah,
Whether you're talking about the writer, the director, the actor, the lighting technician, it doesn't matter. You're
yeah,
all supposed to be working toward one solid formed goal to put out a quality product.
yeah,
In order to make that quality product work on all fronts, you need everybody to step up and give their best game in
yeah.
front of and behind their camera. So if the director is screwing up, speak up.
But so that's brilliant. That's a great answer, and I appreciate your answer and your candor, because it raises the issue, right? Because initially we were talking about Ray Fisher. Did he go too far? Initially we were talking about the young lady who plays Batwoman, and we were looking at it from let's be honest, from a critical point of view. But given what you have just said, should we look at it through different lenses? So because you're right, like, as an actor, as a performer, should we admire Ray Fisher for his integrity by saying, look, I realize this is going to hurt my career, which, by the way, he said, but my integrity takes precedence over my personal, ambitions. And so I'm going to speak up. And something went wrong, and I'm telling you that it went wrong, and it was not appropriate. And I don't care what the price is. I'm going to speak up so that it doesn't happen again. That's Ray Fisher's position. So should we look at it? This is where these things get complicated. But should we look at it through different lenses and say, oh, I kind of get where he's coming from? Or should we say, in this particular instance, you've done all you could? You know, what do you think?
It's a little bit of both. It truly is. It truly is. It's like putting together a submarine sandwich. You can have all the meat piled up and all the fixings with the tomatoes and the lettuce and mayo and whatever spices you want to put on the sandwich. But until you have the two pieces of bread in between it, it's not a sandwich.
I love it. I think it's the same thing that we said before, and it comes down to, with great power comes great responsibility. And I think, and correct me if I'm misquoting you, but I think what we're saying is that yes, you should speak up, no matter what the environment is, whether it's social, political. You should express yourself, especially if you see a wrong. And then now, as the audience listening, we have to judge it on a case by case basis.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, what's happening is that we're dismissing categories. We're saying social justice warrior, don't speak up, or no social justice warrior, no political issues, no diversity. No, it should be, yes, those things should exist. There should be diversity, but we have to judge it on a case by case basis. Sometimes that individual actor may have pushed a particular issue too far.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't reduce the validity of the issue, but you may have handled it wrong, or maybe it wasn't appropriate in this particular instance. In other words, we have to judge it on a case by case basis. And then we can say, oh, in the case of Batwoman, yeah, she went too far, man. She should have never said that. Who is she to be demanding how Batwoman should be? And that we agree on that.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't mean that next time around, an actor or an actress can't express their opinion about a character. Like, that's not what we're saying. Do you see what I'm saying? It's a weird distinction that I'm making.
Yeah.
And so you have to be able to handle the issue well, intelligently, fairly, professionally, courteously, and with some degree of integrity, and bring it to a case by case basis.
Mm-hmm.
So in some instances, it may be right for me to go punch a guy in the face. And in other instances, it's completely inappropriate. You know, if he's
I just can't picture you walking up and popping some guy in the face. I just, you're not a violent man, and I just can't see that. But anyway,
I'm not the type to go up and punch anybody in the face, except
I would. But anyway,
but if it's foreign, unless it's warranted. So this is a perfect example. If a person is walking down the street minding their own business, the idea of doing that is like would never even occur to me, and it would be wrong in all kinds of ways. But if I'm walking down the street and someone is beating up on a 2-year-old, then I will walk up and punch them in the face and protect that 2-year-old. So we can't. What's happening is that we dismiss. We say, "Oh, never punch someone in the face." It doesn't work that way.
Nope.
And the other side is saying, "Well, always punch him in the face." It doesn't work. It doesn't work that way. Let's just figure out what's going on here and judge it accordingly.
Right.
And that's not what we're doing anymore.
This looks like a job for Superman.
Hey, look! It's Spider-Man!
The dynamic duo return next week. Don't miss it.